COPWATCH, policing the police every single day.
To listen to what we have to say. We wanted to lay out some ground rules first. Please, no interruptions, no being loud when the panelists are speaking, none of that, please. Clapping is fine, cheering is fine, all that, but just please don't be rude to anyone. In the end, we all do want to bring change, and we all just want to share our thoughts with each other. So please allow us to do that, and I hope we all have a great time. And so I wanted to lay out the outline as well. So first, we'll have all the students and the officials come on stage and sit down. After that, Abby here, who is from the Charlotte County Schools, she will begin by asking the Parkland students some questions. And then after that section is done, I'll be asking the Charlotte County students some questions. And then once that part is finished, we'll both be asking the superintendent and the mayor questions. And once that is finished, then there will be a section of time allotted for the public to ask questions to everybody on the panel. And that will be towards the end of the program, and please, don't worry, you all will have a chance to ask your questions. And so again, my name is Abib, I'm from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I graduated in 2017, and this is Abby. I'll allow her to introduce herself.
I go to Charlotte High School, so it's really awesome to see all of you out here. I'm a rising senior. I hope I can do a lot of good and cause some change in this town before I go off to college. Thank you guys for coming.
Yes.
Okay, we just wanted to thank the pastor for letting us be here and hosting this for us, so we can give him a round of applause.
Now we'll begin by bringing in the students and the officials. Yes, but please keep the flash off. We'll begin by having the microphones passed down, and each person will introduce themselves, say what school they're from, and why they're here, why they want to be speaking to all of you today.
Hi, I'm Liana. I'm a dual enrolled FSW student, and I'm here because I don't want to be next.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Salovitz. I'm a rising Port Charlotte High School senior, and I'm here because I have so many people in my life who go to schools and who are at schools that I can't let this keep happening.
Hi, I'm Bradley Thornton. I'm a graduate from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I graduated 2 years ago, and since some of my best friends have led this movement, I'm here to help in whatever way that I can.
Hi, my name is Sarah Chadwick. I'm 16 and I'm a rising senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and I'm here to hopefully inspire more young people to come out and be activists in their community.
Hello, my name is Vance Herbener. I'm a rising senior at Port Charlotte High, Go Pirates, and I'm here to make sure that people in our community know that they have a voice, and that hopefully together we can inspire change in this issue.
Hi, I'm Talia Christina. I'm a rising senior at Charlotte High School. I am also here, just like Vance and Sarah, to let young kids know that they also have a voice, get them politically active. And I'm also here because I want everybody to be aware of the situation and do my part for the next generation to make schools safer for children.
Hi, my name is Daniel Williams. I recently graduated Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I'm here to empower the youth and inspire them to make a change that we all want to see.
I'm Victoria Gonzalez. I'm a rising senior at Douglas. I'm here in honor of my best friend who was killed at my school, and for every single kid, and make sure they're safe.
Hi, I'm Mayor Rachel Kiesling, City of Punta Gorda. It's my honor and pleasure to be here. I was contacted about participating today, and I did not hesitate to be here to come. First of all, we had a roundtable discussion that was excellent, and we already shared a lot of information and came up with a lot of different things that we can pursue to make schools safer.
I'm Steve Dionisio. I'm the superintendent of schools. It is my pleasure to be here. One of the greatest things I get to do is talk to kids and listen to kids. So I'm hoping this is just one more example of that.
All right, and so I do ask that we all give a round of applause to the students. All right, so now we'll begin with Abby asking questions to the department students.
Okay, so I guess one of my first questions is how does media coverage of this movement and of gun violence now hurt or help the message, and how can student journalists get more involved and change the narrative back to what the movement stands for?
Well, something that helped us gain our platform that we have now is social media and our ability to use it. And so another thing is that this did happen in a white suburban area, and so we were able to use that to raise our voices and make our voices heard. And so with that, it helps us because we get to spread our message, we get to spread it to everyone nationwide. It also hurts because sometimes the wrong message is spread. Like, for example, that we want to take away all the guns. We want to repeal the Second Amendment, which we don't want to do. We just want to make the streets safer. We want to make everywhere safer. And by doing that, we can all live.
So student journalism is an amazing thing. I know a lot of the students that are from Marjory Stoneman Douglas that are part of March for Our Lives were student journalists. I know that I was part of the television production program at Marjory Stoneman Douglas for my entire time there. And a lot of the other students were too. And student journalism is really important because you guys have the ability to raise the voices in your school that aren't necessarily being heard. So of course, you know, we have student leaders up here from Port Charlotte, and you know, there are, I'm sure that there are a lot of other students, you guys, that aren't necessarily being heard, and student journalism is just one of the many, many ways that we can raise the voices that aren't quite being heard.
My next question is, what is the balance between local and national activism pertaining to this movement in specific, and also movements to come?
So sometimes it's really hard to be a national activist just because maybe your voice isn't being heard around the country, but a good way to start in your activism is to start local. Maybe help out in your local elections, maybe help out at the voting polls. You don't have to be 18 to help out at voting polls or volunteer. You can speak out about what you believe in, organize rallies, like these amazing Port Charlotte students did today. So I think the first step in activism is local activism, and then soon making your way up to national activism.
Does anyone else have anything else to say?
I just think that they're pretty much codependent. You know, we can't make national change if we don't make local change. You know, local leaders are the ones who are going to make change right. Most importantly, here at your guys' home, there's a saying, I'm sure that a lot of you guys have heard, that home comes first, and always take care of your home first. So local action is really important because that should be pretty much everyone's first priority. And then through local action, through inspiring people to vote and get involved in the political process, that's how we garner that national change.
My next question is specifically about school safety and how to improve it? How can we make our schools safer while not making it uncomfortable for students to come and learn on a daily basis?
So school safety is a really difficult issue because of that. A lot of times when students are, or students learn that maybe another school resource officer is going to be placed in their school, they may feel uncomfortable because they may feel like they're being watched, or potentially, there's more chance that, a tiny little slip up could get them in trouble.
Correct.
So I think that it's really important to pick and choose school resource officers, really specifically make sure that they're from the community, make sure that they have met with the kids and spoke with the kids personally. Just ensuring that the measures that are taken to keep schools safer are, passed through the kids and make sure that they feel comfortable with those changes.
Also, another thing I heard today is that, schools are originally built as an educational facility. And unfortunately, that's no longer how we can look at it. We have to start, a lot of schools now are putting in safety precautions. And it's necessary, but it also shouldn't have to be necessary. So that's where school safety and making it uncomfortable for students to learn kind of is a blurry line. Because I know students, of course, want to feel safe in their classrooms, but they also don't want to feel like they're going to a prison every single day.
Correct.
So that's what we are.
I also want to say, I believe children feel most safe in their schools when they're given an outlet. I believe mental health specialists should be put in every single school so that every child feels that they can say what they need to say, they can get anything they need off their chest, to a trusted adult. I think that'll definitely make them feel safe.
Moving on, why do you think that youth empowerment is the next step in this movement, and how do you think that you can foster it here on further?
Well, the youth are going to be the next people that run the country and the world. We believe that pretty soon this will be our world, and we want to make it safer for each other. And so something that we believe that empowering the youth and making sure their voices heard, what was the question again?
Just how you think that youth empowerment is the next step in this movement, and how you think that you can encourage the youth to get involved and have their voices be heard.
Well, empowering the youth is very important. We want to make sure that they believe their voices matter, because something when I speak to students around these areas is that they don't believe that they matter. They don't believe that when they speak up, people will listen, but they will. And so going to each local community, going to everyone, speaking with these young people and saying, yeah, go out, go vote, go educate people on these issues, go educate people on voting even, and register them to vote. It's very important, because by going to each local community, you get everyone to rise up and say what they want to say.
Yeah, exactly. When we talk about we love, at March for Our Lives, we love to talk about voter apathy. And that's a really important thing, because the youth voter turnout rate, out of all the other age groups that vote, is by far the lowest. And it has seen a steady and significant decrease over time. And that's just not okay, pretty much. That's a lot of the times that a lot of the times we feel that's why young people feel like their voices aren't being heard, is because they're not voting. The voter turnout rate for young people is so low. So that's one of our biggest goals here at March for Our Lives, is to increase the voter turnout rate in young people.
Daniel said before that this will be our world. I'd like to say this is our world. We are the future, but we are the present. We've grown up accustomed to change, accustomed to growth, you know, unlike you old people. Like you said, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but we're sure gonna try.
Is there any more responses to those questions? Good? Okay. My final question today is just an overall question, and can you tell me how you got your start in this movement and also where you would like it to go from here?
So, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think a lot of us did get the start in this movement after February 14th happened. I know personally, I mean, that day we didn't have a lot of the details or what was going on, so it was mostly anger. So, like most Generation Z's too, I got on Twitter and I just started ranting because that's just an outlet now. But I decided to attend a rally that was happening in Fort Lauderdale on the 16th, I think it was, where Emma Gonzalez, you might know her, gave her iconic "We Call BS" speech. And from there, I was contacted by a friend of mine, and she said, "Hey, we're having this meeting at Cameron's house, maybe you should come." And I did, and now I'm sitting on the stage, talking to you all. And I think where I want this movement to go is that I don't want this movement to have to exist. It's unfortunate that it does have to exist, honestly, and it's unfortunate that it had to exist after a tragedy at my school happened. But I'm just so grateful to be here and being able to inspire and just promote activism and voting into the younger generation, or honestly any generation, because it's so important to actually go out there and try to be the change you want to see in the world.
I'm honestly sad that it took what happened at my school for me to get involved with this. I'm so inspired by everyone everywhere that they stood up and they said, "No more, I don't want this to happen in my community." And so they didn't turn off the TV, move on with their lives. They said, "I'm gonna change something." And so I think that in a couple years, I hope this movement doesn't exist because we will solve all the problems we're trying to fix. That's a big test of tolerance to fill, but I truly believe that we can change what we want to do. I truly believe that we can make the change we want to make.
So having graduated from Marjory Stoneman Douglas when everything happened, I'm a theater major, so I was getting out of my art of storytelling class. I promise that's a real class and it did do real work. I was getting out and I actually ran into a fellow alum from MSD who was really upset. She had a little brother who was, still in the building and she hadn't heard from him in a while. And this is the first time I'd heard about it, so it worried me a lot, and I walked into class. And then afterwards, I was just confused and scared and unsure of what to do. And luckily, one of my other college friends who is also helping out with the movement came by on his way down from North Carolina and picked me up. And I ended up back at MSD, and now we're here. And so being at college, one of my huge goals with March for Our Lives is to be able to extend the youth activism to college and even give colleges and universities have them act as sort of a hub for these high schools. Have leaders at these universities who the high schoolers can go to for advice if they can't reach one of us for some reason, or things like that. Just ensuring that universities and colleges can help out the high schools and the young people as much as they possibly can.
My entire heart was ripped from me that day. As I mentioned before, I did lose someone really close to me, my dearest love, Joaquin. And for a long time, I I just kind of hid, you know, under the radar. Nobody heard from me. I did my own thing, and I looked for a while for someone who could feel that and who could fight for the same things that I wanted. And coincidentally, as soon as I wanted to become activated, they did contact me and ask me to join this tour. And I'm here just because I don't want anyone else to lose their working.
That's all my questions for the students, and I will pass it over. Thank you.
Just to state again, my name is Amit, and I'll be asking questions to the Charlotte County students. So my first question will be, with all the walkouts, marches, and demonstrations that you have done so far, how can we all, as Parkland students, as Marjory Stoneman Douglas students and activists, how can we help you as local leaders? How can we contribute to your movement?
Well, you can contribute, first of all, by keep on doing things like this. You have done this amazing tour around Florida. And you have really reached out to the people who are making the change locally. And you know, you can't always like go on a bus and go around Florida, but one of the amazing ways that we're connected in this world is through social media and through the internet. And although we can always not physically be there for each other, it's really great to know that we have this amazing digital support system through you guys. So you know, that's one way that you can really help us, just by doing what you're doing, sharing the resources, and continuing to be an inspiration.
I think it's really important that you're just keeping this movement alive. Watching the news every day, it's died down, the power behind this movement, but you're still there, working every day, putting your energy into this, and you know, it helps us keep it alive too.
To continue off what Sabrina and Leanna said, I think your guys' persistence in this issue has been really impactful, not just in the days following right after the tragedy that we all participate as Floridians in, but also helping keep the movement alive. I mean, every time we have a mass shooting in this country, you see the talking heads on all the major networks talk about it for about 2 weeks, and something else happens. You know, and that's a major argument against, you know, serious action on the issue, because we think it's passive, it's, you know, it's a temporary issue. But when we have people like the kids here from Stoneman Douglas come out and say, this is still an issue, these kids are still dying every day from mass shootings, it shows people that, hey, maybe we should start doing something about this. So it also inspires the youths here in Charlotte County to get involved as well, outside of just Twitter rants, you know. So, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing.
I think a big thing with you guys coming as well is that these are the students themselves. Bradley brought up a great point that our generation, they don't come out enough to vote. They don't come out enough for these kinds of things. So having the students here themselves definitely shows that our generation is trying to come together more on this movement to help be politically active and get our voices heard. So I think that's a big one.
Okay, so my next question is, what do you all believe as students is the most practical way to curb gun violence both in and outside of our schools?
All right, so inside of our schools, I think it's so important that we keep talking to our kids. You know, we need guidance counselors, we need adults who care about our feelings, because our feelings are so important to us. You know, we're young, and we are going through so much in lives. It's important to see that people are there for us. And outside of schools, I do believe that we need stricter gun control. I don't think we should get rid of guns completely. You know, I don't think that's even feasible. But we need to deal with our loopholes, and we need to, you know, rein in this big problem.
To continue off what Sabrina stated, I think it's really important that in our high schools we continue this conversation of how our students are feeling inside the classroom. I mean, as we've all seen, college, it's stressful, the build-up to college is stressful, high school life is stressful, managing your social aspect now with social media, knowing that every second of your day can be seen to an extent. We need to understand that children need to have a person at their school who they know of, not just there, but like they can easily communicate with about how they can deal with that stress, how they can manage their daily lives. So I think that's also a very important part of this process. In addition to that, as we've seen, like peer mediation has been very impactful in ensuring and managing stress and problems that arise in communities. The Daily Show did a piece on it a few weeks ago about it, working in the Chicago suburb, not Chicago, so the downtown Chicago, where we see gun violence rampant, where we take community members who have issues with one another, students who have issues with one another, and they talk it out peacefully. So continuing a peaceful conversation, I think, is a really important part of addressing the problem.
So as I said before, I don't actually go to a high school, I go to FSW, which is our local college. So my concerns with school safety is a little bit different because we don't have this sort of really rigid structure that high schools have to keep them safe. So my issue with safety is not about active shooter drills, it's about someone who actually comes onto campus and is allowed onto campus because it's an open campus. So my issues of safety are not going to be solved by making schools into prisons. They're going to be solved by making the world a safer place. It's going to be solved by not only working in schools, but working on streets, working in churches, working in clubs. Mass shootings can happen everywhere and anywhere, not only in schools. We keep on having to remind ourselves that because although we may be afraid of being shot in school, people are afraid of being shot in their streets, in their homes. And that's not okay either.
Alright, so are there any other responses? No? Okay. So my next question is, with the obstructive and constant polarization of political parties and ideologies, which largely hinders any change, how do you believe that bipartisanship can be encouraged and put into action?
So I think a big part of this gun issue is that it is not a partisan issue. You don't have to be a Democrat to believe that guns should not be in the hands of every single person in this country. We have to humanize this issue. I mean, these kids from Stoneman Douglas, they faced it in their school, and we see it every day on the news. It is a human issue. It doesn't have to do with political parties, and we have to remind ourselves of the real stories behind every person that was affected, the names and the ages of these people who are lost in these terrible shootings. It doesn't matter what political party they came from. It matters that they were valuable members of our society.
To address the gun violence, I think it's really important that we establish bipartisanship. We saw that bipartisanship right immediately after the tragedy that happened in February in the state Congress, where we saw Republicans and Democrats reach across the aisle and establish a compromise on gun control. We saw the minimum age for handguns be raised. We saw a reduction in the waiting. We saw a reduction in how, let me state that, sorry. We saw waiting periods extended. We saw people take action and make an attempt. Making an attempt is so important in this issue. We see people say, that won't work, and they just dismiss the idea. But the parties, the people coming together and saying, let's try this, let's see if this reduces the violence, reduces the statistics, I think is really important in our day and age.
Adding on to what Vance said, I think it is important to make an attempt, but I think it's more important to follow through. We should have... We as citizens of the U.S. should have faith in our politicians that even after the cameras are gone, that they're going to continue pulling through on these effective policies, and they should continue through. And that's why we're here, This is not over. The cameras might be gone from them, but we're still here. And I think that's really important as well. So, adding on to the bipartisanship thing, I'm not saying I'm for or against the NRA, but they do provide a lot of money, and I think that's where we see a split start to form between politicians. we see a split start to form between politicians as in their campaign money. So no matter what you're for, we need to really hone in on our beliefs and ideology, whether you're a Democratic, you're a Republican, or you're independent, and put that money aside for a second and realize what it is you want from your government and be an active force in it.
And I'd just like to ask, no matter your political party or the political party of those around you, don't ever allow you or anyone around you to be swayed by blind rhetoric, by words with no meaning. There are lies out there, but the numbers don't lie. People are dying. So just look into the research, look into the numbers, look into the facts.
So my next question is, what do you as students here in Charlotte County and as teens in general in America think that the next steps forward are?
Well, you've gotten their attention. Now it's time to use it. Having town halls like this, having real discussions with your candidates, with your officials, having discussions with people from both sides of the aisle, from both sides of the issue. Now that we have opened the dialogue, we have to use it. We have to use it to really create effective change. And you're going to do that by talking to people. Talking to people even if they may not agree with you. Talking to people even if you may not want to talk with them, because that is our responsibility now. That is how we are going to end gun violence.
So today, school members from Port Charlotte High and Charlotte High got together with our superintendent, our school board members, our SROs, and our sheriff, and we started a dialogue. And I think that dialogue needs to continue as a next step forward. We got to talk about how we think that simple stuff like making sure teachers can lock their doors inside their classrooms is really important. Making sure students know what to do in the case of a shooting, what to do if there's a threat on campus. Because I mean, I go to this high school, I go to Port Charlotte High, I don't know what to do. Is it just a code red drill? I don't know. I need to know that as a student in this day and age. So continuing that dialogue and also making sure that the people we elect, or the people who can elect the people, know that they have a voice and that they're the reason those people are in office, and that they need to communicate why they put them in there, what they believe in, and make sure that they do the change that represents themselves.
So I think the most powerful thing we can do is vote out those who stand against us. Our votes are so powerful. Our voices mean everything, but we have one vote, and we can use it to get rid of people who will not listen to us.
I honestly completely agree with what they've said, and I think having a dialogue is really the most important part. Me personally, I have really strong ideologies, but I also love to hear people who are opposite of me and why they hold their beliefs. So talking to other people and coming to a compromise is definitely going to be the biggest thing.
So just like one more point, So like in the United States, we have really bad voter turnout, and I think that's unacceptable. Because if it's the one civic duty you have as an American is to make sure that people running your country are doing it well, that you should go and participate. It may be tough. You may have to mail in a ballot for. You may need to have to stand in a line early or late. But I think it's the one thing you have. Like if you complain, it doesn't matter. But if you vote, it matters.
Thank you so much for adding that in, actually, because that's a great segue to my final question. So for a long time, the young demographic has often had the lowest turnout rate of all age groups. So what do you all think that the best way to change this is and get teenagers and young adults more active and politically aware?
I think it starts when we're younger. I did not have politics taught to me ever. I still have friends who don't know the difference between political parties. And I think there's this idea in our country that politics are a taboo or something, that it's a step away from the personal, but the things that you believe have to do with politics. If you believe that kids deserve to be safe in their schools, then you care about politics. So don't let yourself be afraid to think and feel strongly about things. So just vote for what you believe in. Don't let yourself be swayed by rhetoric and ideas that you've heard from the people around you.
Sabrina's completely right. The first outsource that you have for politics is your family. So definitely teaching your children, or even people who are older than you that don't typically vote, that it is important to vote and your voice counts is really important. I think another way is definitely not being afraid to speak about politics. We typically have that a lot in this country where, people's ideas differ from us. But letting your friends know, letting your acquaintances know that they should be voting. Oh, have you registered or pre-registered for people like us? It's an important topic that we all need to really talk about.
Okay, so how we're going to get young people to vote is we're going to register them to vote. Which you can actually do today right in the table in the back. But it's important for really any event to, kind of have the norm be voter registration there. People buy snacks, they buy food, they get DJs, get voter registration. Voting is an essential part of our country. It should be an essential part of our life. It should be a right that we are all happy to participate in. And I really think just it has to change the norms. The norm should be that you are a voter.
This is just a quick thing. It's my personal belief. I think that there should be a national holiday for voting, and I think we need to put systems in place where voting is something that is heavily encouraged in this country, and it's not.
Just like to add on to that, I was about to go into that. So like if I'm registered for the draft, by the time I'm 18, I should be able to be registered to vote at that same time. Voting is just so important because when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. So if we look back at the 2016 election, whatever you think about it, only 9% of the US population decided on the candidates we had on the ballot for presidential elections. Only 9%. That's less than 1 in 10. But if we all participated more in the political process, maybe we'd be more satisfied in the people we have available to represent us. And I think that's helps get young people in this process too, making sure that they feel more like they are part of the process, that they feel happy for the people at their disposal to represent them in the global scheme. So, yeah.
Talking about getting people to vote again, I'd just like to say that there are many countries around the globe that as soon as you are born, just like you would get your birth certificate or your social security number, you are automatically thrown into the pot. So when you turn 18, you are registered to vote. It is not something you have to do. You are automatically registered. So come voting time, you can vote. And I think that's a brilliant idea that we should implement here in the US. And, oh, hi, sorry. Okay, that's what I have to say.
So now we'd like to move on to the portion of where we'll be asking questions to the officials. So I'll hand it off to Abby and we'll be alternating asking questions.
So my first question is, throughout this entire movement and the awareness for gun violence, we can't discredit the awareness that needs to come for mental health. What are you going to do to raise awareness in our local schools here in Charlotte County?
It's a great question. First, before I start, I want to congratulate the students up here. I can't say how proud I am of you. It is by far one of the hardest things to do, and you're doing it and making this entire community very proud. So great job, I'm proud of you. Mental health is going to be the fix of this problem. I've said it many times, if we're going to stop these incidents from happening on our campus, it's going to be before they happen on the campus. And I can't be any clearer about that. And that comes with additional social workers, additional guidance counselors, where they can get to know students, hear them, listen to them, and take appropriate actions. And unfortunately, I wish I had 100 more to put in the schools today. We're adding 4 additional ones for next year so that every high school will have a full-time social worker. Middle schools will have social workers. Elementary schools will have social workers. They already have guidance counselors at all levels. We're doing as much as the budget will allow us to do, and we'll always spend that money right to the point that we can, because I can't say enough. If we're going to stop these situations from happening, it will be before it happens. Once it begins, it's what you just went through at your school. And I want to get to those situations before that. I don't want to try to stop it once it happens. If we're going to really make a dent in this, it has to come before.
This movement has been a great beginning because we can all be empathetic. I mean, literally, you all are in our backyard. My daughter's in SGA. She knows a lot of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas students. Our former police chief lives in Coconut Creek. I mean, there's just so many commonalities that we have, and we wouldn't wish this on anybody. But we all realize this could be one of our schools. This could have been here in Charlotte County. But one thing that we do here that we tried to convey this afternoon to the students is that we're a very tight-knit community and we take that very serious. So listening to these kids, they're going to be part of the solution. They've already told us things in the round table, little detailed things, that they need to be able to ask questions and get answers. That was one of the biggest things that came out of that. If they have a question, they want somebody to take them seriously and give them an answer, and we owe that to them to do that. So as a community leader, I'm not directly involved in the school system, but my mother was a teacher for 29 years at Sally Jones Elementary. I grew up in the school system, even when she would take me to school with her, and I would walk over to Charlotte High before I could drive. And we all know people that are teachers, administrators. It's not just the kids, it's the families. We all know families that are invested in our Charlotte County school system, and we need to protect them all. As the city, we are adding 3 new school resource officers, and that went through. I mean, we worked out the deal, we had the funding, we signed the agreements, it's already a done deal. No controversy, no big blow up, no big to do with it, because it's the right thing to do and we know that we need it. And working with our new police chief, she realizes that she needs to find the right people to put in that job. Okay, yes, it is a job, but you need the right person in that job. And luckily in the city, we've been fortunate to have very dedicated police officers that get certified to be school resource officers that want that job. And I've shadowed them in the past, and they're amazing people. So continuing on that, making sure that when kids ask us questions, like being here today, would you come be a part of this? Yes, I mean, they want answers. So as a city, that's what we plan to do to help the problem.
So my first question to the officials is, how can you best empower these youth sitting beside you as they seek to bring change? How can you be more active?
I think, what we had in the other room, and you can go back to your schools and share, I even talked to Leanna about Florida Southwestern. I mean, there's ways to open lines of communication with the higher levels. And maybe sometimes maybe the kids that aren't here, but you guys have stepped up to take that role. There's ways to get to the top level, even when you feel like there's roadblocks or there's stumbling blocks or somebody's not listening. There's different ways to talk to different people to get to the people that you need to talk to. And we're certainly willing to do as much of that as we can.
And I think to follow up on that, I think the students and the leadership teams and the teachers and the support staffs at the school have to begin to have a relationship that goes far beyond what it currently sits at. When a student reaches out to an adult at whatever school they're at, to whether it be start a new program, start a new club, or just say, hey, I need to talk to somebody, they need to be the priority. And it should always be that way. And we heard in the other room that at times it doesn't always feel like it's that way, and we're going to do things to try to make that different for them.
There's a rumor out there that Punta Gorda closes down after the snowbirds leave. So I just want to commend you all. You filled the room, I think, to capacity, and that people could live here year-round. So congratulations to the students.
My next question, I know the students, we've talked to you in the roundtable previously this afternoon, but can you please just reiterate what safety measures and what mental health plans you are planning to implement in this coming school year in this county?
I would like to think our plan started many years ago. Unfortunately, after Sandy Hook, this community, the Punta Gorda Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and the school board came together and made a decision to budget enough money to put a resource officer in every school. So when you read the papers and hear the chaos of people who can't figure out how to put a school deputy in every school, we've been doing that for years. We already made that commitment with this community because we prioritize student safety number one. What we're able to do now is start to double up in the schools because of the additional money. So we'll have 2 SROs in all of the high schools. We'll have additional bodies of resource officers, so if one of them has to leave campus, we have fill-ins for that, so that a school is never left without a deputy there. So that's one of the things we have been doing and can enhance. The social worker thing I talked a few minutes about, we can continue to add those as the budget allows. I would argue again, social workers, psychologists, and guidance counselors, a secondary school specifically can't have too many of. So whenever we can add them, we will, because they are the ears of the school. And if we're going to get to these problems before they become major incidents that, like you went through, it's going to come through those folks. It will start with a support staff member or a teacher sometimes, but the kids need to know if I'm having a problem beyond what I think I can talk to my fifth period math teacher, they need to know who to go to, be able to get into that person and have a conversation with them. On the hardening of the campuses, we've also done a lot over the years. Charlie and many of us that were here for Charlie, it gave us an opportunity to rebuild schools because it took many of our schools. And we rebuilt those schools with single point entries. We did that already. So you hear a lot of school districts struggling with how are they going to do that. Charlie didn't give us many things, but it did give us that. It did do that for us. It allowed us to do those things. So now when additional dollars come, we start out and work our way closest to the schools, meaning we want exterior fencing, we want perimeter fencing. We'll be adding this year things like push button instant locks, so that if something happening at the front door, the person sitting at that front desk can push a button, instant lock. Also a button that has an instant call for law enforcement to arrive quickly. We'll be doing things where we will have Knox boxes outside, where if it does get to that point that unfortunately we didn't stop it before, and 10 deputies arrive on campus to come save the day, there'll be an area that they can get to and get some keys so they can get inside the buildings. Things to try to make us as safe as possible. And I say as safe as possible. I would love to sit up here and look every one of you in the face and say, we are as safe as we can be, we are good to go, and I have no worries. I'd be lying to you. There is one thing and only one thing in my job that I lose sleep over. It's safety of kids and staff members. Because I know when the parent sends them to school, they expect them to come back home. Sometimes they're not always thrilled to see them, I get that. But they expect them home. And that's the part of the job that you lose sleep over. So every second that we're there, whether it be the superintendent, a principal, a guidance counselor, a teacher, a custodian, it does not matter. They are always worried about the safety of students. And anything we can do, we will. We will continue to listen to kids, that's for sure, because they have great ideas that help us when we're doing one of these and we're like, well, what should we do there? Usually all you have to do is ask one of them. And they'll say, Mr. D, come here. This is what you should do there. And that's what we need to do.
On the city side, I'd say supporting, all of this costs money. All of these programs that we're talking about cost money, and at the present time, the state has come in and helped us out for school safety. Hopefully that will be a long-term deal. If it's not, then we need to hear from you guys, and we need you guys to get behind this to keep the schools safe. Locally too, we have the 1% sales tax that will be coming back again. And some of that we can use for the school system to do some safety improvements and cameras and things of that nature. And the city side, when I first got elected to city council, it was a tough recession. And school resource officers on the city side, because we have our own, they're not city schools. They're Charlotte County Public Schools, but the city itself felt very strongly about our awesome police department that we wanted our officers in our city limits dealing with these issues. Not only that, they're in the classrooms teaching these kids. They have direct experience in elementary, middle, and high school. And that's where they open the lines of communication. And when I first got on council, one of the budget cuts was the school resource officer program. And that's how I ended up going to shadow the officer in the middle school and the officer in the high school and seeing what they dealt with every day. They weren't handcuffing kids. They weren't taking kids to jail. They were listening to kids' problems. Kids would come to them and share stuff. Hey, you know, last night my neighbor did this and I really feel uncomfortable, and then, you know, the kid was telling me this, and it's always their friend or their neighbor. It's never them that they're talking about. But they definitely shared all these stories. And once I sat down and was in the office with these kids, and one of the kids, just to share a quick story, was an awesome athlete at Charlotte High. And he was on the verge of being ineligible to wrestle. He was a wrestler. And Officer Schrader had taken this kid under his wing, and the kid had gone out that weekend and done something really dumb. I think he was driving and he didn't even have a driver's license, right? So he gets pulled over. Well, they don't take the kid to jail. On Monday morning, we were sitting in Officer Schrader's office. They called him down, then they called his mother. And his mother came into that office, and we had a total shakedown with this kid to try to get him to realize on the weekends he can't be out doing all this crazy stuff, and he needs to go get his driver's license. And we offered the mother help, whatever help you need to go get your legal driver's license, we're going to help you do that, and we did. And so those are the things that you don't read about, you don't see, but happens in our schools. And the additional resource officers, I mean, we would love to have more, and it all takes funding. So supporting funding, 1% sales tax, and the referendum that's coming up. I mean, it's all going to take dollars.
And so my next question is, so I've heard what the students think about what comes next, but what do you as elected officials believe that you must now do or can do at this point?
I think the first step was today. I think we have to do more conversations with kids. I think it's the step that always gets left out for some reason. And they're the ones, that should be the first person you talk to when it comes to this. So I think one of the things that we don't not only have to continue, but we have to start to ramp this up at a much quicker pace, where we're having healthy conversations with students about ways we can make our schools safer. And I think if we start that process, you see what happens when you give kids just a little. They're more than willing to run with things when they think they have the ability to make a difference. When you continue to squash that, that's where they go back into their shell and they say, they're only talking at us, really nothing's going to happen. So we have to continue to do that. I think that's the first thing. I also think something Ms. Kiesling said is very important, is that when the time comes that the government decides, hey, there's a much different criteria or much different way that they think the money should be spent, and they start to divert these funds that we can now spend on social workers and additional SROs. Our community has to speak up for that. Everybody is all, as I say, everyone's all fired up right now because it's the most recent tragedy. I don't want one more tragedy to happen, because that means more kids. It shouldn't take another tragedy for you to continue this kind of groundswell support to keep kids safe. You should always want to keep them safe. They should always be your number one priority. And if that stays the mindset of Charlotte County, this place will be fine. It really will.
The one thing for me today is keeping the lines of communication open. Kim Amantri was here and she was sharing that she was just at a school board association meeting. I'm a board member for the Florida League of Cities statewide, sharing information with other cities, other officials, letting everybody know what everybody else is doing, because we're not going to solve this in our little isolated Charlotte County. We're going to solve this by listening to these kids. They have to be part of the solutions, and they had awesome ideas. That was an hour and a half, and many ideas came out of that session. So we definitely have to keep the lines of communication open and all collectively work together for the goal, which is no more.
All right, so that was all the questions that we have for the panel here, and so we ask that you give them a round of applause for all of them. And so now we'll be moving on to the portion where you in the audience will be able to ask the questions. No, you don't raise your hand. Just right there. Okay, so I just wanted to go over some ground rules. First, I'd like to reiterate that we ask that you do be respectful of everyone on the panel, and you don't ask overly pointed questions. And make sure you remember this is not a partisan discussion. We're not discussing things about being a Democrat or a Republican. We're talking about the issues that face us all. And so to line up for questions, just line up here on the side. You'll be speaking into the microphone. And to start off, please only limit it to 10 in line at a time. Thank you.
Only 10 people first? Sorry.
So everyone else, please wait for now. Once the line goes down, another.
But I'm going to sit down here, if I could. Thank you.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to address two issues. The first one is safety, and the second is...
I gotta get behind her.
Let's see. I'll start with school safety and I'll remember by then. School safety. I taught for 30 years and I taught elementary school. I think this is reverberating.
Yeah, just a bit.
In our school, it was very old school, and they wanted to have single entry like you talked about, so they chained the other doors shut. But one thing they had that might be of interest to you is chicken wire windows. They had chicken wire windows. You might be able to have those and do something for yourself. because that came in very handy when a drunken father somehow got in and started beating on my door, the window of my door, wanting his child. Now, we locked our doors. It was inner city, it was kind of dangerous, and this father was drunk and he wanted his child, and because that chicken wire was there, he could not break through, and everything was okay. Just wanted to tell you about that. The other one was mental health. See, I did remember. And what I wanted to know was, you're adding these mental health people, I don't know what you call them, they're at the school where the people were killed. This boy had had problems for years and years, and people all through the ages had known about his problems, and nobody had done anything about it. So that's a big problem right there. But if you get these mental health experts, are they going to be able to, quote, tattle on these people, report them?
We work closely not just with other agencies, but with parents. If there's a situation that we believe a child is going to do something like this, we'll take every means possible to keep the safety of all of the students, yes.
So they do have to tell you if they believe that they would do something like this?
I don't understand the question. You're saying if they tell us.
You have a mental health person. They believe. There's no secrecy, there's no
we'll do many
confidentiality.
Now I understand. I'm with you. There is, however, if we believe that student is in danger or could harm another, that takes it to a whole different level. We'll do everything possible to keep the safety of that school. Regardless of anything else, the student safety and other safety is the #1 priority, yes.
So the mental health person has to tell you.
We can Baker Act. There are many things we can do to make sure that situation.
You're not answering.
Okay, that's a minute. That's a minute.
Has to tell you.
We have to limit it to one
It's a
question.
minute.
We have to limit it to one question. We're trying to get everyone to ask.
Well, if you don't know, there should be a hurry.
He did answer the question. So I'd like to reiterate, please limit it to one question and don't do long questions, please.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say my pet peeve is old people don't support our schools. I hear it over and over again. I want to know how we can get us old farts to support our schools. If you have good public education, you have a nice society.
I don't think there was a question there. I agree. I think that the more this community that came here today supports us, the better this community will be. You can be mentors. You can get yourself into our schools in a positive way. And I'm telling you, these kids enjoy that. They like to hear the voice of someone other than their teacher or their own parent. You're a different voice, and they like that. So be a mentor. Be a part of our school system.
So this isn't just happening at schools. We've been hearing a lot about schools, school safety, but when we make the school safe, what about you guys? You know, you guys don't go to school. And then what about us? What happens when we leave the school? What happens when we go to the mall? What happens when we go to the movies? And so something that you guys can do is you can help elect morally just leaders that can put legislation into place that will
Another thing is simply listening to us young people and, calmly having nice discussions. As long as we keep talking about it, something will get done. I've heard someone say before, a person really dies twice, when they leave their vessel and when their name is said for the last time. So we can't ever stop talking about it. We can't let this die.
To continue off of the sentiments Mr. Dionisio said, I think that we live in a retirement community. There's no denying that. There is a large portion of old people here, or older people. Not to be offensive, but like, you guys can really help the people who are still young here in Charlotte County, who are still learning. I mean, volunteering is very important. I mean, this year I did an AP research project where I had to like go into fields I had no idea about. I looked into 3D printing and engineering. If there's people in the community, because I know there are, who have been very expertise in stuff, who have experience in many different fields that our kids today are learning about, they should be able to come to schools and say, I can offer assistance in these fields. I want to help. And also making sure that our public school system is correctly funded. A lot of the issues we see in public schools today come directly from funding. Because people don't like taxes. I mean, I don't like taxes. I like my money. But it's a necessary part of our civilization, and making sure that that money is going towards a great institution such as our public schools.
I think it's really important, beyond prioritizing our students, prioritize our teachers. You know, I know there are so many teachers who mean so much to me in my life. In Florida, we're better, but there are other states where teachers aren't paid a living wage. Now, which is insanity, of course. These people, they help raise our kids, and they are such a huge part of their life. They're educating them, they're teaching them morality beyond that, and they're teaching them common decency in everyday life, how to be kind. We really have to put more importance into our teachers and pay them better.
Alright, so now we'll be moving on to the next question.
Well, thank you all for being here. On the issue of low voter turnout for your age group, a lot of people in this room are very actively involved in getting out the vote this November. So what advice do you have for us as ways that we can get your age group to the polls? Should we be sending text message reminders? Should we be knocking on doors? Should we drive a bus and take people to the polls? What do you suggest we do?
Well, something here at March for Lives that we do is we have this thing where we register, we educate, and we vote. So we're all registered. Now it's our job to educate the public on these issues and these different candidates that are up for office. And so something you guys can do is you can go out to your grandchildren, to your friends, and you can educate them on these issues, do your research, look up the candidates that are up in your congressional district and in your state, and just tell people what you know and what you think should be done.
So just to go off of that, I think a huge reason why the younger generation doesn't go out to the polls and vote is because they don't know a lot about the candidates that they're voting for, which is a huge problem in this country, which is, like Daniel said, a part of the register, educate, vote, and I think such an important part is educating. So like Daniel said, try your best to educate those around you about the candidates, and also don't just vote along your party lines because they're your party lines. Vote for what you believe in. And a huge thing that we say at March for Our Lives is we endorse policy, not people, because, I mean, there's people on both aisles that might not necessarily share the same beliefs as you, even though you are in their affiliated party.
Cool, so education is super important, but also motivation is really important too. A lot of the reason that teenagers or young people don't vote is because they don't care. They don't think it's fun, they don't want to put the effort forth, they don't want to figure out how to do it. So one of the things that we do at March for Our Lives is we have voter registration events, like our kickoff event in Parkland. We had a big voter registration booth from our friend David Headcount. And we also had lots of food, free food, games, food trucks, So, you know, it was just a fun little way to get teens, young people out motivated to, you know, care about their political process. And anytime that, you know, teens care about that is when they go out to vote.
Can I take my shirt off? Can I take my shirt off? Inside out?
Engaging people is very important, and there are a lot of families here in Charlotte County. So talking to your friends that have kids, high school age kids, teenagers is very important too. One thing to keep in mind for this November is that that ballot is going to be very, very long. So the best thing to do is register to vote by mail, so you can bring it in home. You can read it as many times as you need to make a decision. So encourage people to vote by mail this time, because if they show up on voting day and there's a huge line out the door, there's a good possibility they may have other plans and pulled out of there, or dip. They may dip out of there. I'm learning those words. So encourage them not only to register to vote, but vote by mail, so they can really read over this crazy ballot that we're going to have in November.
It's just one part. No, I can't. I gotta go.
You're asking like as a teacher or for teachers, but I know she said, do we need to like text you and remind you? In school we have this thing called Remind 101. Reminding kids is always great, you know, balancing extracurricular activities with our schoolwork and college applications. Just reminding people can always help. That works a lot. Even if like, not like a chain email, we don't send emails anymore, but like screenshotting a text and sending it to someone, screenshotting a snap and sending it to someone, reminding people about that.
You're not going to screw this up, I'm just going to ask a question.
All right, ask a simple question.
Can I ask a simple question?
Okay, it's fine.
They said I couldn't ask a question. Is there all right if I ask a question?
Absolutely.
She just did it. It's on video, 2 cameras. Okay, so my point is, you brought a great point up. There's a bunch of old people here, including me. I'm 52, believe it or not, I am old. But we grew up in schools that were not gun-free. And we didn't have this problem. We had a lot of people that they would come to school with their hunting rifles in the back of it. So my point is, government and cops caused this stuff. They are the ones that made it gun-free and made people want to go to school and kill people. It's the cops and the government that caused this.
Thank you. That was not a question.
Keep in mind, please don't come up here to make statements. It is your First Amendment right, but we ask that you actually ask a question. That's why we're all here, to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, and that was a statement, and it's his opinion. But my statement is, congratulations, guys, you are fabulous. And you've already addressed it, and I'll be really quick. Education, being able to separate fact from opinion, that is so critical for people who are voters. It's not just about coming out and voting, but being able to vote for the right person who's not only going to do the right thing based on your beliefs, but follow through with that person to see what their voting records are, and follow through with them in making sure they're carrying through with what you believe, and being able to separate the fact from the opinion. And second thing, in all due respect to the superintendent, it's not just about mental health issues. That's huge, okay? But it's also about access to guns, and I think that's really
Again, questions only, please. I know, we still need just questions.
Okay, I heard on the panel that students aren't being educated, so my question is, if we were funded the money, is there any way we could incorporate mental health into the health ed classes, add psychology classes, teach children about coping skills, and add some government classes? That's my question. At the start of
We do have psychology classes in all of our high schools. I'm not sure that's really what you're talking about. The kids brought up a great idea in the back room that the district that is visiting us right now from Parkland here, they have some other courses, like things where the kids get to have time to talk to each other, whether it be through homeroom or study halls or just other moments in their school day where they can do something other than be concentrating on just the textbook. So we're going to look at that. You're right, it does come with funding. Everything does. But it's not something we're against. It's something that I'd be more than willing to look at. If it helps these kids get through their day, I think it's a great idea.
Me too, and maybe having a round table instead of like the old-fashioned field days where people can come just say what they want to say might help. Okay, thank you guys.
When you first started this movement back in February, I was very excited about the energy that you showed and it grew. But I'm a little disappointed that it's just a single issue. Don't you think, possibly, that if you broaden as a voter, which by the way, young lady, was my generation of activists that got you the right to vote. If you broaden your knowledge of the voting process of our society, like the Supreme Court case that just came out regarding gerrymandering this week, Citizens United, and so if you broaden that, you would have a greater power, because we have a very violent culture right now. And it's not surprising that there's guns going off in school, or malls, or churches. We have a very violent culture. So as a voting bloc, don't you think that broadening your base, broadening the issues, is going to come to solutions quicker? Because quite often with single issues, and it's happened in my lifetime, I've seen it, the single issue movements die quickly. They get frustrated and they die quickly and move on. Anybody have a
I'd like to say our main focus is obviously gun violence, but we understand that so many factors go into that, such as mental health, such as education. There are so many things that cause this issue, that, we're focused on fixing all of them, but we're...
So, we were given this platform, and gun violence is something that happened in our community, and something that we don't want to happen is if we spread our message too broadly, it will get diluted. Something that connects us with many communities around the nation is gun violence. We went to Chicago 2 weeks ago to do a peace march, and we were able to connect with them and talk to them because they deal with gun violence every day. And so mental health, all that is very valid, but what we want to do is we want to get people registered to vote, educate them to vote on the platform of gun violence, because that's what affected us, and that's something that connects many people. We asked that you ask one question, please. Thank you.
There's someone actually
I asked him.
going to give you the names for the we're going to have.
Can I add one more thing though, real quick? So he mentioned two things that really started out: gerrymandering and censorship. Those are also very big issues within our democracy, I think, today. Gerrymandering, as we may know, is the process of altering district lines to maybe benefit one party or another, and that simply is undemocratic. And there are organizations that exist today that work towards ensuring that those cases get brought to the Supreme Court, so they're ruled against to make sure that, hey, this district is unfair. It's just making the votes unbalanced and very partial. So that's an issue that I think we as young people need to be educated on and act on at the polls. And for Citizens United, again, that's another issue within our democracy today that has allowed thousands of dollars come into our election cycles through independent spending, such as super PACs. Again, that's an issue that young people need to educate themselves on, and that people who already have organizations that are dedicated to that issue need to expand and make sure people know what's going on in space.
I would just like to
add to what on to be said, that March for Our Lives is a movement born out of gun violence, so naturally it follows that it would focus on that issue.
Amen.
Alright, so,
Okay, I want to start off by saying I'm a Christian. I'm an American. I'm conservative and a member of the NRA. So you know where I'm coming from. You know, out there's a sign that says worship God, not guns.
What's your question?
please let him ask his
I have the
question.
floor, lady.
1 minute.
Pastor over there has a good idea. The root cause of this isn't gun violence. It's evil. We don't address that. We let kids go to the school, they run the school, very little discipline. And your school right there, the school, hold on, I know.
Let him ask his question.
Guys,
And your school right there, how many kids picked on that kid? How many bullied him? The question is, what are you doing in your school to make it safer? Because it starts with you, not with us. I can't be there. If I had a gun, I'd blow the guy away. The police officer did nothing. The FBI did nothing.
Okay, this isn't a question.
What is your question? Oh, sit down, lady.
Okay.
Sit down, lady. I have the floor. You're
1 minute,
free.
1 minute.
Please be respectful.
Let him speak.
Okay, well, you have to ask a respectful question. You're blaming the victims here.
Alright, I'm not going to answer this question. I'm notorious, but although you might not agree with everything everyone says, we are here to have a discussion, a civil discussion.
Thank you.
And we
Good
must
question.
respect each other.
That's right. Very good point. Excellent. Thank you.
That I really don't like, because everyone else has a way to deal with it.
I just hope we can continue this discussion, but we want be in this church in, out of order, so I will completely shut the whole thing down, and we will move on, because we're not gonna do this. So, hopefully, great questions, but if not, I will totally shut this down, and we'll get ready for our day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. So please, no victim blaming. You can ask your questions, but please don't ask pointed questions blaming the kids up here. That's all we ask. So next question.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I'm a country Gorda. I want to thank the panelists for being here today. So
Free country, eh?
My question is this.
This is a private building.
They exhibit certain behavioral characteristics. And these characteristics, when people look back, they say, oh yeah, we saw that he was doing this and that. What would you say to people in this audience? We all have family members, that we are concerned with. What should we be looking for that should trigger an alert in our mind that we need an intervention?
Okay, well, I didn't go to a school where there was a shooting. Port Charlotte High School has not had one, but the characteristics that a lot of these school shooters have is, well, first of all, they are often bigoted. They're racist or anti-Semitic. There is hatred in their hearts. And beyond that, there's a fixation on violence. And, there are people I know who like guns, and they are absolutely ordinary, good people, but when guns are the sun that your world revolves around, it should be worrisome.
Amen.
I think you should be looking out for the isolated kids, the ones who seem angry at the world, the ones who need help, and help them, period.
So he asked about intervention and where that should occur. And I think that again comes from mental health and understanding the situation of our kids in our schools today and what their home lives are and making sure that they have an outlet and they have someone who they can confide in at school, making that available. That man who just exited the building said that how much was that child bullied? But you have to also understand, did that child have an outlet to tell someone? Was he getting the proper help he needed? We need to understand that it's not a rational decision. No one should come to a decision that shooting up a school is rational. we need to ensure that people are educated, that people know what's going on, that they're getting the help they need.
Also, while all of these are really good points, and I completely agree with them, just a reminder that we are not doctors and we're not psychiatrists. So please, if you see what you think are signs with someone, please go see a professional about it and ask them and consult on them as well.
Kids, teenagers, talk to them about see something, say something. And we talked in the roundtable, we've had a couple of lockdowns in our school from social media where kids saw some other kid post something that was scary. And they need to know that they need to report that, even though they think, oh my God, the school's gonna go on lockdown, you know, they may cause some kind of ripple effect. The kids need to know that if they see something disturbing, that they definitely need to be encouraged to report it, and I hope that the school system is doing that.
I can tell you, I wish he was still in here, because what they're doing is exactly that. Almost every case we have where we have a lockdown or a preventative lockdown comes from kids telling us. Usually the kids aren't calling us saying, hey, I'm going to do this crazy thing on Snapchat so that everybody freaks out. It doesn't come that way to us. It comes from students. They are doing what they're supposed to do. They are
I know one example of a recent school shooting in Santa Fe. The boy who did it, he targeted amongst many people a girl who had turned him down, and she had embarrassed him, and he beforehand had aggressively pursued her. Now this comes into victim blaming. A girl should never be expected to date a boy just so he doesn't kill her and her friends. And you should not be expected to be friends with everyone so that no one dies. There is, of course, an element of simple human kindness, saying hi to people you don't know well, being kind to quiet people, but that are completely separate from becoming close to an extremist. That's, we have to report them. We do not have to become friends with them. It is not our job.
All right, so we move on to the next question.
Thank you, and thank you for making this available to our community. It is timely, it is important. We know by statistics that newly registered is one of the lowest voter turnouts. So I do hope that as you are planning your strategy for voter turnout and education, that you consider a couple of other things that we haven't heard much talk about. And one is you running for office. At the age of 18, you can run for office, and other young people and old people like me will come and vote for you. But also make a plan so that you can help those students where mom and dad have different ideas than these students do. Because my story I had is that there was a voter registration done by young people at Port Charlotte High School, and before I turned them in, I saw that one kid failed to sign it. I thought I'd just drop by the house and have the kids sign it. I met with, sorry to say, the NRA, and the dad literally stood over the child to make sure that that child filled out that voter registration form the way he wanted it filled out. So just including your conversation, how you're going to help students where mom and dad might have different ideas. And if you've already had that conversation, share that with us so that we are more enlightened.
And what's the question?
What is, do you have a strategy for dealing with kids that are not in homes where mom and dad think the same way? And do you have a strategy for planning to run for office yourselves?
So for the running for office question, before and even now, I never had the intention to run for office. I don't want to, and I don't think I should. It's not my job to have to run for office because our elected politicians can't necessarily do their job right. It's not fair. It's not fair to put the burden on 16, 17, 18-year-olds to run for office because others haven't done what they promised to do.
So I can't really speak on the running for office thing yet because I'm only 16. But as for, you know, reaching out to kids who may have parents or adults with different beliefs, it's a lot about creating community within our schools. And we, the Charlotte students, are working on that now. You know, we're working to create an organization where kids can come and they can express their political beliefs no matter what they are, and kind of really come together and create real change on whatever issues they want. There are also kind of should be more youth-oriented groups in general. Like we have this really great local group, Array, All Rainbow and Allied Youth, which is our local LGBT group. And you know, they're there for people for young people who may not be accepted in their homes or may not be accepted in their communities. I mean, in their families or in their schools or in their social groups. You know, we have to have those youth-oriented groups that are going to be there for kids who have nowhere else to go, and that's what we're trying to create.
So in our REV plan, register, educate, vote, the second letter is educate. And one of the things that we promote here at March for Our Lives is self-education. And that's mostly channeled through the lens of, you know, not voting just by party lines, not voting for specifically Democrat or Republican, but looking into the issues and determining which candidate is best for you. So self-education is something that we really push for, and, you know, students, when they self-educate, can absolutely make their own decisions regardless of what, you know, their peers or their parents say.
Okay, moving on to the next question.
I just have to say, for foremost, Mr. Dionisio, you have done a wonderful job with our security. I've worked over 30 years for Charlotte County as a speech and language therapist. I work at an elementary and high school. I have seen a whole lot of problems as far as where the kids are coming from, so I thank you for that security. I also want to thank all of you, and especially wanted to hug her, because I had a high school student that asked me, can I have the permission to write every one of those kids' names and their birth dates and the years they were in school and what made them special? And it was so heart-wrenching. So I want you guys to know that you were thought of and we were with you every step of the way. And as far as the question, maybe, I see as a language therapist, social skills are really weak. They don't know how to respond to what's happening, whether it's in text, whether they see something on Facebook. And I think if we just model that, tell the kids to model instead of accusing, instead of, well, you should have done this, but get that out into the communities. And also I wanted to have you guys, we need mentors in our schools because they are lost out there. We have a lot of homeless kids. We have more than 50% in my school on free lunch because that's where they're at. So please help us and contact your elected officials, because the elected officials tell us nobody comments about education, so we can't get very far with that. So that's what I wanted to say. So are you willing to tell your future tours about just having clubs after school and modeling like social skills? It can even come through plays.
Well, yeah, actually, so school clubs are actually one of the things that we're working on and pushing. We're working on school clubs that are not only catered specifically to the local community. That's one of the biggest goals. Is like the club's mission statements will be, you know, based off of their community and not ours necessarily. Our platform for that would be to ensure that they are open to discuss whatever they want. And then next, of course, is open and clear, kind discussion and discourse would be a really huge goal for those clubs.
Yes, my thing will be positive comments.
To continue on that point about how clubs can help with social skills, like personally, I've lived that throughout my life. Because when I entered high school, I was shy, I was very meek, self-deprecating. But then through clubs such as like Model UN, SGA, NHS, I was taught to open up my shell to like people and be able to have some confidence for myself. So I think making sure that clubs at school, those that exist and those that can be made, are open and that they can help students interact with each other outside of just the virtual world. So I support that.
That's why
I think a lot of it has to do with our wonderful teachers. They teach us how to interact with adults, and then they teach us that, like, speaking to students is okay. We're discussions in class. First day, learning everyone's names. And towards activism, which isn't so much just interacting with people, but activism. One of my TV pro teacher, Mr. Bowden, he gave us the opportunity to feel so empowered. He helped us plan the March for Our Lives, which gave me a voice, and I've gotten to speak at other events because of it. So there's just so much power behind that place.
All right, so
well, I would hope you would give me the same amount of tolerance you just gave her, who spent 3.5 minutes making a statement, to spend 10 seconds asking a question. So let's be tolerant here today, okay? You know, I've been listening, and first of all, I am a Christian. I am a conservative.
Please be quiet, let him speak.
Yes, please have respect for the speaker. Is that difficult? Thank you. Please be quiet. As I've been sitting here listening, it's not what I've heard that I'm shocked at, but it's what I haven't heard that amazes me. I'm glad you're talking about gun violence, but I haven't heard the fact that the greatest violator of gun violence is our government.
Correct.
You've not said anything about the 1.4 million people that our tax dollars and your hands have blood on them, because your tax dollars have killed 1.4 million people in the Middle East. Furthermore, we have a movement going on in the sporting world today, in the NFL. We have a football player that has sacrificed millions of dollars in a lifelong career to speak out for gun violence that is being committed by our police agencies against a particular group of people. Black people are the victims more than anyone else per capita by police. And yet I haven't heard a single peep out of any of you today regarding this outrageous crime that is being committed by our government. Furthermore,
if I may interrupt, do you have a question?
Sometimes when you ask questions, they must be prefaced with facts and comments. Please afford me the same tolerance you gave the last speaker who was on your side.
2 minutes.
The fact is, I've not heard anything about Hollywood. Week after week, America entertains itself with gun violence as entertainment. Hollywood is the culprit. I haven't heard that topic brought up in this conversation.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Stricter gun control I did hear mentioned today. And this is leading to my question. How's it working out for you? The cities with the strictest gun control, DC, Chicago, Los Angeles, have the highest rate of gun violence and murder in the world.
Amen.
Please answer that question for me.
Wait,
Let them answer, please.
I can tell you exactly why. Illinois has some of the strictest gun laws in this nation. But what about Indiana? Guns are being brought across state lines. Because like our nation is only as strong as its weakest state law. Because if we don't invoke federal laws and only state laws, those people are bringing weapons of mass destruction across state lines. And so that's how all these inner city murders and violence in these communities that you speak of, like DC, Chicago, are happening. Not because of the area that they're happening in, but because of the such loose restrictions around the area.
All right, Speaking to the other points you had, this is an issue about schools. These are the Parkland kids who face death in their schools because of guns. This isn't about cops, and this isn't about war in the Middle East, which are huge
Is he going to kick you out, or you get to stay?
but
Is he going to
that's
kick
not
you
why
out, or
we're
do you
here.
get to stay? No, he's not kicking me out. So he kicked the other guy. He kicked the other guy out. Right?
Andy, don't start. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Well, next question.
Good job, man.
Hi, I'm from Lee County, and
Alright, I'm out of here. By the way, he knows my name.
and other schools behind, and I want to go
Fucking oh.
Police use who may want to retaliate against him physically.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I just wanted you to know that I am using this stuff under fair use. And also remember to like and subscribe this channel. Also too, keep in mind I do not make any money on YouTube. This is 5 hours work a day, you know, fighting for freedom. And you can donate with PayPal and Patreon. I just want you to think about this. If everybody gives to PayPal and Patreon, Patreon is every month. Actually, PayPal you can do every month. I have 12,000 subscribers. If everybody gives, I can quit my regular job and go full-time investigations on Charlotte County and possibly even more and beyond. So just keep that in mind. If everybody helps out, I can go full-time doing this. Thanks.